What's going on, guys? It's Monday night. We're live. That's right.
We are live.
We're back. Yes. For some reason, I don't know why. I honestly don't know how or why I'm not at work right now. But we used this opportunity to go live. We're going to be talking about Invincible, finally, by Robert Kirkman, Corey Walker, a little bit of Ryan Otley salted in there, one of my favorite artists. So, Invincible. And I misled Andy. Apparently, there's only 4 issues in the trades. I didn't know that. So I recommend you read up until issue 12. So we're going to try to avoid spoilers from issues 9 to issue 12 for Andy's sake. So
God no, that's all I want to talk about.
I know.
No,
so
bring it up because while we're discussing it tonight, I'm actually reading that third volume or that third trade on Comixology right now.
Nice.
For free because I've got unlimited, so I can read along as we're actually doing this.
Which means that if you have unlimited, you can be reading along as well.
Yeah, that's right. So we're going to talk about Invincible tonight, and we're going to talk about how to stealth buy. And you're just like, what is a stealth buy? Basically, in my opinion, stealth buy is, when you're at a dollar bin or on eBay or maybe in an online auction, and it's like a really nice book that, unfortunately, a lot of people like to pay money for comes up, and somehow you get it for way undervalue. So you kind of just stealthily buy it. So we're going to talk about our tactics on stealth buying, our recommendations, and how it basically, is it possible for you to stealth buy? Because I've talked about it with, like Chad and Drew. It kind of depends on what country or part of the country you live in, maybe. So we're going to discuss, regionality as well, in my opinion. I think it comes into play. But first, let's just get to our panel here. And oh my God, the live and in charge, the beard looks even more majestic. Andy, how's the beard?
Boy, this beard's doing a great job of making me feel invincible tonight.
Hey-oh. Drew, are your barbers not open yet or something? What's going on down there?
Look,
man?
I got myself a nice little trim today. We've got conditioning going on. I got a nice new brush where you're brushing it out on a regular basis. Things are looking good down here, man. We can't all start off where Andy started off.
That's pretty impressive. I feel like just the other day he shaved the whole thing and then it came
back. A year ago.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Almost.
It's like it never even happened.
10 months.
But you know what is happening? That chat, because, hey, we've had so many premieres, I've had a chance to acknowledge a chat, but here we are. We got Chris Barrett, 316. He made sure, I don't know if he set an alarm, make sure he was first, but Barrett, tonight, you are first again, but usually not too far behind him. We got Ricky Markstadt, host of our wonderful Discord, which I'm sure Andy put in the links down below if you'd like to join our Discord for Modern Men and the rest of the Comic Corps. And Catrin Figures has a fan site on there that's a lot of fun. So go check all of that out. We got
Chad just joined today.
Oh, that's right. Chad joined and just the whole place exploded. Almost literally. We got the Stream Elements robot to keep this chat from exploding. So nice job, Stream Elements robot. We got one of my favorites, Downright Nerdy Podcast. He's in the midst of a move right now, but go ahead and go to his channel and check out his archives. He's got a lot of great stuff out there. I'm sure he's going to make a big comeback very soon after he gets moved and settled into a new studio. Love that guy. We got Scott Evans. What is going on, Scott Evans? He says, I'm not that late. Excellent. Yeah, we're just getting started, Scott. So hopefully you are able to read along and you can give us your opinion in the chat tonight, because I know Scott specifically likes to read along with a lot of the stuff we do around here. We got Kachung. What is going on, Kachung? Nice to see you in the chat. We got K Titus saying konnichiwa all the way from Japan. I don't even know. I have no clue what time it is over there. But anyway, thanks for
Modern Men time is what time it is.
Hey-oh, K Titus. Oh, yes, we got Brian from Simple Man's Comics saying Andy uses mane and tail shampoo for his beard. That guy is always on point. Happy to see him in the chat tonight. And then she says, chat, join chat. Absolutely. Join that chat.
Yeah, chat. Join it. Join another chat. Chat, if you don't have enough chatting going on in your chat, you can always join another chat.
All right, speaking of chat, it's time to chat about Invincible Volume 1. So for me, Invincible's kind of an interesting story because I didn't even come close to reading this when it came out. Like a lot of people, I got hooked on Invincible because Walking Dead, basically. I went to a panel in the mid-2000s. It was a Robert Kirkman panel at a Wizard World. The guy wasn't even advertised for the Wizard World. So when they're like, yeah, they're doing a Robert Kirkman panel at this time in this room, it's like, was it like a retrospective or some dudes from Image talking about him? Because he wasn't on the guest list. So I go to this panel, and he's doing a Q&A. Robert Kirkman actually showed up to the Wizard World. It's the only one I ever saw him at. And yeah, he was fielding all these questions about Walking Dead, but at the same time, a lot of fans there were, of course, talking about Invincible, and just hearing these fans ask these questions and hearing Kirkman passionately talk about this book, it definitely got me interested in, picking up these wonderful hardcover versions because, still to this day, Image puts out some phenomenal hardcovers. And if you read specifically this version, there's a lot of cool bonus material. I think, reading on Comixology, it was printed in a lot of the trades, but if you get the Ultimate Edition hardcover, there is a ton of bonus material, sketches, concept sketches from Cory Walker, lots of Science Dog sketches because Robert Kirkman loves him some Science Dog, like Carl from The Walking Dead, basically. But yeah, once I went to that panel and met Robert Kirkman that day, I was kind of convinced, like, I need to read Invincible because that seemed to be the second part of his 1-2 punch back then. And once I bought this and read it back in the day, I've got 7 more volumes sitting over there. Like, I was hooked on these things. So for me, back in the day, it was a very addictive read. And I was very happy it won the vote a couple weeks back. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Andy. And I want you to tell me about your first experience reading Invincible, because I kind of jacked up. I didn't realize the trades were only 4 issues, whereas this is 13 issues. So the best part of the twist, in my opinion, happens in issue 12. So Andy, what was it like reading these first couple of trades?
Well, let's start from the beginning. Is I've passed this book up for years, walked by it for years, and for a very long time, my LCS has had the first 3 or 4 copies of this in their discount trades bin for like $4. I'm not sure why. They had brand new ones sitting on the shelf for full price, but the discounted ones have been sitting there for a long time. I just continue to pass it up. I'm not sure why it's taking me this long to pick them up and read them. I'm glad we did. And a little frustrating as a first-time reader to dive into 2 trades that not only don't carry the typical number of issues, but when you're reading them, all it says is chapter 1, and then gives you like a cover image of what I would imagine. Like, I know what the cover of number 1 looks, then the rest of the chapters or issues, it just gives you what I would think would be the cover for the single issue. So chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. Well, then you go into volume 2, book 2, starts it all over again. Chapter 1, chapter 2. And wait a second. Where am I now? How do I keep track? How do I keep track of what I'm... So not only that kind of messed me up a little bit, but then I didn't even realize that I had only read 8 issues and not 12 until Drew and I started talking, and you guys started talking a little bit earlier. And I'm like, well, Comixology to the rescue here.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I don't know if it's like when these originally came out, because it's been a while since they put these in trade, obviously. If they're just experimenting with that, like, really low price point to get people to buy it. Like, how much did the first trade retail for, Andy?
These actually weren't even the usual Image $9.99 get you hooked and keep you going. They were $13 a pop.
Really?
The original pricing.
Oh, my God. I didn't realize that. That's
old school.
Dang. Well, Drew, what about you? I don't know if we've ever talked about your first experience with Invincible.
This is my first experience with Invincible. Yeah. I think we talked about it last week. Every time that somebody's like, have you read Invincible? I say, yeah, but I'm really talking about Irredeemable, which is another great book, one that I love. This is very different. Very different. I very much enjoyed this book, despite significant detractors upon first picking it up. Yeah, I thought that the story was great. You got kind of a Peter Parker allegory, but instead of being an orphan, he's got a mom and a dad, and just so happens that when his powers start to develop, his dad's been a superhero all along. It's pretty cool. I think that the art was terrible. Cory Walker's art, it sucks. I'm not going to try to find anything else he's done. I don't care for it. I would not be surprised if this was what he's best known for. He's not good. When Ryan Ottley takes over, you got one issue of that, didn't you, ComicManAndy? You didn't. So the art took a significant upturn in the last issue that Andy read because Ryan Ottley came on board, and it gets so much better. I think that there's a lot to love about the first volume of this book, but the second volume, like if we were going to just score the first volume right now, it's a 6.5. There's nothing to write home about it. There's fun to be had, but this story hits its stride issue 7, issue 6, maybe. And the art hits its stride issue 8. So it's kind of hard to heap praise upon that first volume, but it kept me going.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that whole two artists thing up, where I kind of the same experience, Drew. I won't lie, where I open it up and I'm just like, I remembered Cory Walker started the series. He's always credited as one of the main creators of Invincible. And I was just like, this art is kind of rough. I didn't know how you guys were going to take that and if that was going to make it very muddy for you to get through the book. But yeah, I was reading, I think it was volume 2's forward was by Eric Larson, if I remember right. And he kind of gave the official story on what happened with the art. Basically, they were all happy with Cory Walker, and he was kind of a growing artist too at the time, of course. And they talk about how do you launch an Image title, and then your main artist is like, I can't keep up with a monthly schedule, I'm gonna have to back out. And then they tell that whole story about, I guess Robert Kirkman's luck at the time, basically, how he ended up having to almost forcefully discover Ryan Ottley, and boy, was that much for the better, in my opinion. So it goes from like this, I don't even know really how to describe. I don't want to call it gritty art because obviously it's still very bright and colorful. Like Crabtree does some great stuff with the colors in the book, but I don't know. He does this part where sometimes the eyes will look normal, and then on other panels where it's not even zoomed out. Like I kind of understand if like it's from a far perspective, but still like a closer perspective. They have like the animated dot character eyes, and it just drives me crazy like when Walker would do that. But just seeing Ottley in his first issue and how he's grown as an artist since his first issue of Invincible just makes me like him that much better, because he's on Amazing Spider-Man right now, or at least he was last time I read it. And
he's doing alternating arcs.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, last time I read one of his Invincibles, which obviously it goes well into the 100s. I'm like, man, Marvel or DC is going to pick up this guy, and if Marvel picks him up, I think he'd make a great Spider-Man artist. And I guess over time, boy, was I right. So yeah, I'm absolutely a big fan of Ryan Ottley for sure.
I always would associate Ryan Ottley with Invincible, and the fact that Cory Walker started the book off was foreign to me until I opened this first issue, or I guess swiped to the next page of this first issue, and saw that it wasn't Ryan Ottley. I was expecting the art to be much better. That being said, it wasn't bad enough to take me out of the story. I think it services the story in a way that is acceptable. It's just the juxtaposition between Walker's art and the Ottley stuff is just so far apart, in my opinion. I just think that the Ottley stuff is so much better that it makes the Walker stuff look worse.
I think, Carson, the term you're looking for earlier is underdeveloped.
Yeah.
That's really how I feel about volume 1. Is I feel like this was kind of an experiment at the beginning for Kirkman, And I feel like the art and the colors were underdeveloped. Like you can see a pronounced difference between Crabtree's colors from volume 1 into volume 2, and then when you switch into Ryan Ottley's art, that at this point Kirkman's hitting his stride. Then you get Ryan Ottley in there, and the Crabtree's developing a little bit more, and bam, the story really starts hitting its stride. And yeah, if you just, like Drew said, if you read just volume 1 and just tried to have that stand on its own, I don't feel like it holds up too well.
Andy, Stevie B wants some dad jokes.
Well, you know what, guys? You have ever tried archery lessons blindfolded?
No.
You can't see what you can't miss. Nope.
Well,
I don't have it tonight, Stevie.
That joke missed.
That missed.
On that note, I'm just going to go to the chat to our cleanse our palate there. Flash Ray Videos joined us. What is going on, Flash Ray Videos? We still got Civil Man's Comics 100%ing in the chat. We got Bearded Comic Bro. What is going on, man? Definitely check out this guy's channel. He's very close, I believe, to 250 if he hasn't hit that already. So definitely check out Bearded Comic Bro. We got, I believe, is this your mom, Andy?
It sure is. Hey, Mom.
We got Andy's mom in the chat. What is going on, Andy's mom? Nice to see you
Andy's
in the
mom.
chat tonight. We got DJ Tony Stark saying Invincible rules. We got to get that guy back on the show at some point. That guy is awesome. We got Stevie B. What is going on, Stevie B Comics? We got Yo Gang, just a Rican and his comics.
What's up, Rod?
One of the best in the community. What is going on, Rod the Rican? We still got Ricky Markstadt, Chris Barrett, of course, and just like the Discord server today, we got Chad R joining us. What is going on, Chad? And then, of course, for Andy's joke, we got, I don't even know where the comment went. Crickets. Sorry, I wrote my own joke when someone
It's supposed to go, you don't know what you're missing.
All right, so with Invincible, you get introduced to a ton of new characters, even a few random image characters thrown in there. Like you get a nice little appearance from Savage Dragon and a lot of other ones that Robert Kirkman grew up with and loved as well, and shoehorned in there from the Image universe for what that is. So I guess I'm not going to try to cover all of the characters because there's so many. So Drew, did you happen to have a favorite character you wanted to highlight from this?
I love Omni-Man. His dad is set to be voiced in the animated universe of Invincible by J.K. Simmons, and it's going to be so freaking good. Just Omni-Man from all-American dad mode that you get in the beginning, all the way through what Andy has not had a chance to read yet, which is just a whole nother level for this character. I loved Omni-Man. Teen Team was fun. Some of the bad guys were pretty cool. I think that Kirkman did a great job of throwing as many tropes and send-ups of other universes in here as well as he did pay homage to the Image characters that he had the opportunity to use. It's really, really badass. But Omni-Man, for sure, carries this book.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, especially especially this entire volume 1. Like after this one, they kind of take a break from Omni-Man for a while, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I kind of agree 100% with the fact that it starts off with that whole dynamic between him and Mark Grayson, his son, obviously, and just getting to know the Viltrumite Empire through Omni-Man's storytelling, and I guess really getting to know the Viltrumite Empire through the storytelling of Omni-Man and how that kind of alters in issue 11 going up and all that fun stuff. But I always also liked Alan the Alien. It was another one of my favorites.
Alan's pretty great too.
As you get to know him going forward, I mean, it's almost like he almost starts off like a cameo character. Like I didn't even realize how early he appeared in the book until we did this reread, because the first time you see him, you don't really think anything of it because he's kind of just like thrown onto a panel getting punched by Omni-Man, I believe, in the second issue. And he just looks like some sort of random alien that is like Omni-Man's defending Earth, when in reality it's just like there's this whole other layer of stuff going on to it. Like and I like the first meeting between him and Invincible, where it's just like, you're the defender of Urath, and I am here to challenge you. And he's just like, Urath, what in the world are you talking about? So they actually like have a psychic conversation on the moon. And Alan is just like, oh, crap. I was supposed to be at this other place 50 years ago, and my evaluation 20 years from now is screwed. I got to go back as soon as possible. It's just all this crazy, like, sci-fi stuff he's just throwing at you left and right. And it's just a lot of fun. It's a character he has a lot of fun with. And even though he has a sense of humor, like, just hearing him talk is almost so depressing toward the latter half. I guess a little spoiler for Andy, where Alan's talking about how the Viltrumite Empire is basically evil and it's responsible for wiping out his home planet like years ago. So like the more you hear Alan talk, it's like the more clues as to what's actually going on in the rest of the universe. So I really dig any issue with Alan and Adam Eve as well. I think Adam Eve is kind of like the other kind of breakout character early on, especially. And as the entire run goes on, like, she's almost right there with you until, some crazy things happen. So yeah, I won't go too far into deep spoilers because I've read and forgot a lot of this stuff. So I would actually like to reread after. But Andy, I was trying to buy you some time to get that last volume read. So question to you. So what was the breakout character for you?
Well, I mean, I'm with Drew here with Omni-Man basically carrying the beginning of this story, but Kirkman does something that not a lot of writers do in the first two arcs or the first arc or the first couple of trades of a comic book is they really make you interested in a lot of the characters. I mean, Rexplode, Adam Eve, Invincible, Duplicate, Robot. And
that multi-slut.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite lines in that, because I mean, it's just Drew, you've used the term tertiary characters.
Tertiary
characters too.
They're not secondary, but they're tertiary. They're like on the they're third tier.
But he does
fill out the world.
He does something interesting in these first two volumes. Is he makes me want to read more about a lot of those other fiduciary. And I don't see that a lot in books that I read, is where the main focus is really one or two characters and everything else is barely supporting them. I really want to see this branch out more, but in the end, I'm with Drew. Omni-Man really kind of carries this from the beginning into where I'm at now. And I'm looking forward to finishing this volume 3 here soon.
And we didn't even really mention Robot, who is a big player down the line. He's like the first guy that's recruited after Omni-Man has his big heel turn in that issue 7 or 8. And the first person the government goes to is Robot. And they're like, hey, we're kind of on the fence about bringing you a team anyway. Well, the whole team's dead, so that kind of puts you in first place now. So if you could build a team for the government, that would be great. And then, of course, like his name escapes me right this second. The guy who actually works for the government and that stuff. You see a lot of him down the line later too. But like I said, another one of those tertiary characters who plays a big part. It's almost kind of like he's the Maxwell Lord of this new Guardians of the Globe, if you will. But another fun thing I want to mention is just Robert Kirkman's like kind of weird love for the show Family Matters. Why'd you guys?
I love that
Principal Reginald Bell Johnson.
Oh
Reginald
man,
Bell Johnson Elementary or junior high or high school.
It's the best actor that's ever been in a Dodgers movie. Reginald Bell Johnson, Carl Winslow.
Yeah, he's like completely on the nose with his reference here. It's like he doesn't even sugarcoat it. It's just like boom, Reginald Bell Johnson. Hi, I love it.
And the principal is clearly modeled after Reginald Bell Johnson.
Oh, absolutely. And it's just like going into Walking Dead too, which was pretty much around the same time. Like the first story arc is called Days Gone By, which is the theme song of Family Matters. So just like all these random references to Family Matters, Robert Kirkman can work in. always just puts a smile on my face. And then it's almost like they're in Chew territory, some of the references too. The one that always gets me, and it's not just one time, it's like every time they show the Pentagon, because I think it's just one random joke. Now they have to do it every time. It just says parking in rear at the Pentagon. And that makes me laugh every time. But you see it in like the issue 100s. So it always gets me. But
there's definitely a lot of good comedy in this.
Yeah.
But,
oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I like how they I feel like any random reference that happens, you see much later, like when he discovers his powers. He throws the garbage bag up in the sky.
That's where I was getting at.
Like in issue 1, I think, and then like you see the garbage bag come back, and that's it's not even referenced after that.
Issue 5 or 6.
Yeah, it's like issue 5 or 6. It's like somewhere in Europe, a bag of garbage just explodes in front of this guy and his dog, and then you see the burger joint that Mark works at. So.
That's pretty hilarious. He's just discovering that he has powers when he goes to throw that away. And he discovers his powers just outside of the dumpster. And lo and behold, the area where they keep the dumpsters is where he decides to change into his costume along with what's her face? Yes, yeah. Adam Eve. And then they just wind up, everybody's thinking they're making out in there every time they go in there. And then in the 3rd volume, I just stumbled on this reading. The janitor's out there cleaning, sees him go in, and he's like, "All right, you little perverts."
And he opens it up and they're gone because they've already changed and flew away. There's my favorite thing about this entire book though is before they're all brutally murdered, the Guardians of the Globe and their introductions, they're all fully realized allegories for the Justice League. And it's just a fantastic story of them being introduced one by one just to show up and get their heads just ripped off their bodies. It's amazing. I loved it. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. I like how the Aquaman allegory is like literally almost just a fish. And when you see him, he's just so bored when he gets he's like everyone is doing something and there's action happening around the character.
He's like, finally!
Aquaman, he's like, yeah, finally, someone's messaging me. I get to do something today instead of hang out with fish. So yeah, and I like this random like Alfred clone that's crazy because he was it Black Samson, I think is like his character's name, and basically Black Samson has his own Alfred. And they take away this guy's powers and costume. So when all these characters get killed, he wanted to avenge them, but he's not there in time because Omni-Man killed them all. So he goes to their funeral and tries to destroy their corpses at their funeral. And that's where you get to see even Savage Dragon. He's like, yeah, this happens at every funeral, dude. To get used to it, Mark Grayson. It's fine. So I definitely enjoyed all the randomness in that funeral. You get to see the most obscure Image characters you probably never read or care about, but if you read 90s Image, you're like, oh, there's that guy and that dude. And I think eventually you get to see Darkness and Witchblade in a crossover, and
Ultra was an Ultraman.
Savage Dragon was there at the funeral.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
So you get to see a lot of I can't remember the one dude with the fake Wolverine look.
The guy, the patriotic guy with all the Liefeld guns.
Yep. That's right. So yeah, you get to see all those fun, wonderful characters you don't care about at this funeral.
Right. It's fun.
A funeral for the rest of Image because Robert Kirkman is here and it's his properties now. But yeah, go ahead.
One of my favorite parts that he explores and writes into this as well is when Invincible has to battle Alan in outer space. He's like, well, Dad. He's like, how am I going to handle that? He's like, just hold your breath.
It's like, I hold my breath for 8 weeks. You can't hold your breath for an hour.
Yeah. Well, how many other reads or comic books have we all read or have come out with Superman, all this other stuff? And you see, Shadowhawk.
That's it. Yep. That's what I was trying to
wearing an oxygen mask in a couple of reads we did not too long ago, or people, it's just not explained. So it's kind of fun that Kirkman takes a moment to say, well, these guys, they hold their breath and they can for weeks and months at a time.
Yeah, and especially there's that whole sub storyline where Omni-Man gets sucked into this one dimension where time works differently. and then like you see him later, like they always have this gag like with his poor mother where she's always like at the dinner tables like, oh, how was your day, honey? And then they're just like, oh yeah, my science teacher, his whole family like killed himself, he got divorced, he turned children into bombs, and then I had to fling him in the sky, and he blew up because he was a bomb too. And then Omni-Man comes back from that dimension, he's just like, I was fighting a civil war for 8 months. I need to go shave.
Yeah, that's his first thing was I gotta go shave.
And she's like, can you pass the potatoes, please? That's fascinating.
I love how everybody from his like empire just has perfect Tom Selleck mustaches.
Oh yeah,
every single character.
That was one of the gags like in the Robert Kirkman panel I went to. And he's just like, yeah, never trust a guy with a mustache. So, like, if someone had a mustache, like, all right, when's he going to reveal himself to be evil? So it always cracks me up. So we're about the halfway point of our show here. So this is usually the time where we get a chance to give our final thoughts and a final score. So, Drew, I'll go ahead and start with you. How does Invincible rank up there?
I think that I give this a 9.2. The first volume, not very good. The growth that you see as soon as Ryan Ottley comes on board has me hooked, and I will be reading about 100 more issues of this book.
Nice.
It's going to, like, I haven't read this week yet. I'm going to read more Invincible before I go to bed tonight.
Yeah, I think there's a good chunk of this available on Comixology and, of course, other digital platforms.
First 10 volumes.
Yeah, nice. So it's very easily accessible to get into. So, Andy, I don't know how far you actually got in that third volume that I told you not to read, but you should have read. But, yeah, I definitely think it's worth reading. Andy, what are your final thoughts?
I got about 10 pages, 12 pages in, and Drew's right. Ryan Ottley definitely between Kirkman and Ottley and Crabtree, this book definitely is hitting its stride. And originally I was going to put this around an 8, but I'm definitely landing at a 9.0. And that's pressable defects all over because this could get way better as I keep going.
Yeah, I think for me, I think I'm going to go solid 9.4 as well. Of course, signed. We'll go 9.4 gold label signed by Ryan Ottley, which there's a signature right there. That's what it looks like if you need to know. So that's like, what, third or fourth week in a row of actually like, hey, let me get the signed hardcover out. So, yeah, like I said, Crabtree art, definitely appreciate his contributions because if you read the bonus materials, he had to do a ton of concept art to the point where you actually see some of that concept art come to life where he has that like yellow and orange costume with solar disc. And I like how you see some poor jerk in that costume at the funeral. Like he got this like hand-me-down costume because he wasn't a good hero. I forgot all about that until just now. But that was like the original pitch. And then like, oh, some character Jamal Igle recently worked on is doing that exact same gag. So they changed his costume so it looks like he's almost a trademark for Image. But he did do a lot of contributions, through that creatively. So I respect what he brought to the table. But Ryan Ottley, for me, is by far the superior artist. It's talk about blessing in disguise how, Crabtree's like, I can't do this. This is too much work for me. And then here comes Ottley to the rescue, and he hung on just like Charlie Adler did in The Walking Dead, basically. So the art just gets better. The story just gets more intriguing. But at least in the first volume, like Kirkman, I think his biggest talent is being able to get you to want to read the following issue and the following issue. It's almost like it's not quite like bait and hook, but it's kind of like in that nice midpoint, especially reading it in trades and hardcovers where he ends his stories at just the perfect time to make you like, all right, I got to crack open the next issue. So if you're looking for like, that Netflix style binge read in a comic book, like this is, I'd say like between this and Walking Dead, like Kirkman is the best at a binge read, basically, in my opinion. Between those two books, I think that's what he shines most in. So for sure, 9.4 gold label. I highly can't recommend this book enough if you're looking for something you're going to hang on to for a while. So like Drew down there, read those 100 issues for sure. I can't remember. I think it's 143 issues is the total run or something like that. It's a long haul.
I didn't stop after 12. I'm on like issue 16 right now, so I was zipping right through it.
Yeah, so it's definitely an exciting read. You get to know even more characters. The characters introduced in this one, you see way down the line. They grow, they develop. You might even see another heel turn or two, maybe even a face turn or two. So it's just funny how Robert Kirkman remembers all these characters. And I don't know if he has like charts or maps or something for all of them, but there's a lot of great character development as you go along.
I like how it's not always another question that gets you to read the next issue. Sometimes it's an answer that it's a reveal that isn't so much, a bait and switch or or a usual cliffhanger. It's normally finding out something that opens up a whole new world of possibilities. And I think that for me, it felt like this comic book knew what it was and knew where it was going, but like issue 11, it just decided it was going to be something different. And that is the way Mark feels when he gets the reveal at the end of issue 11 that leads into issue 12. I think that making the audience feel that way as well was just phenomenal.
Absolutely. All right, before we get into tonight's main topic, let's go ahead and hop back into the chat. We got Newbie Comics. What is going on, Newbie Comics? We got He's Not Gone Too Soon Tonight. We got Comics Misexplained. He is in the chat. He says, I had this series spoiled for me, so I never read it. I'll get around to it eventually. Kirkman said he's doing the return of Battle Pope when he's on his deathbed. Yeah, that Battle Pope and the idea between it, Kirkman just won't let that dang thing die. So it's been one of those random characters he's always kind of brought back or brought up here and there. Scott Evans says he liked it. He read 4 volumes. Is going to keep reading. That's awesome. 9.4 for me as well. So happy to hear you read and enjoyed it. That's great, especially after last week's debacle where you didn't like Why the Last Man. So I'm glad we finally rounded back to something you liked and want to keep reading. That is great news. Chris Barrett says, funeral for all the useless Image characters. Yeah, like I said, I couldn't agree. Stevie B Comics, somebody make Andy laugh. Nothing better than watching him lose it. LOL. So he's a laugh track. He's literally for the Wednesday show. Gotta love it. All right. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody in the chat. And Chris Barrett says, the more I think about it, the more I realize I'm due for a face turn, but I can't do a true baby. Okay. Stay tweener, buddy. And then
I don't know if he's a tweener. He's got that X-Pac heat.
Oh, that's true. X-Pac. That's a good term for it. We got Bear Island Comics. You talk about Wednesday show, you talk about laugh tracks, you get Bear Island Comics, one of the best from Wednesdays, and definitely his own channel for sure. That guy is awesome. All right. So, stealth buying comics. So we're going to talk about stealth buying and how to stealth buy, how to get those good deals and dig in the trenches and find some fun stuff for 50 cents, $1, 5 cents, 20 cents, all that fun stuff. So brought some fun books to show off. We're going to tell some great stories, I'm sure. So Andy, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. What does stealth buying a comic book mean to you?
Oh, man. It's about skating where the puck is going to be and not where it's at. Wholeheartedly. Paying attention to those auctions that are ending right in the middle of the day on a weekday or right around dinner time when everybody else is eating dinner, but this auction's ending right now, and utilizing tools to pay attention to that and search alerts and whatnot. Unfortunately, I don't get the same opportunities to stealth buy comics that you do locally. My LCSs and anywhere that there's a comic book sitting get picked through very thoroughly. So if I'm going to utilize those, I am definitely skating all the way on the other side of the rink, waiting for that puck to get there, because I'm paying attention to the things that people aren't paying attention to, looking years out. There's a lot of competition when it comes to buying comic books, more so now than there ever has been in the last 20 years. And I for me, online is going to be my easiest avenue finding stuff. Just the other day, just this morning, actually, I opened this up on Mail Call Mondays with Andy on my own channel. I found
Shameless plug.
I found a 9.4 X-Men 4 newsstand edition for $40 on an auction that was ending on like a Tuesday mid-morning, had no business ending at that time. $40 for this. And not only did I do that, but not only did I buy it just because it was $40, just more than the cost to slab a book, but the pictures were high quality in this auction, high enough quality that I could tell the reason why this book hit 9.4 is the owner didn't press it beforehand. So this can easily press to a 9.6. Hopefully it gets to a 9.8. I don't know. Unfortunately, with books in the 90s, tracking data for sales doesn't differentiate between newsstand and direct editions. But I know people are posting 9.8s of this for $300 to $400. I don't know if they're actually selling for that. But most recent copies in 9.8, whether they're newsstand or direct, are hovering around that $200 mark. So a $40 buy, hand it to a professional, the pressing clean, put another, I don't know, $30 into it. So I got 70 total into it. I can more than double the value of this. So that's an easy stealth buy, in my opinion. Another one that we talked about last week was all the hardcovers of Y the Last Man for $50. That's another weird auction ending time that I just happened to win, that somebody posted it when it was convenient for them and wasn't paying attention to the end time. So each of these books retails for $30. I got all 5 of them for $50. That's a killer deal.
That's awesome. I do love that story about how you have that whole run to read now. Or me and you, Andy, we're gonna read that whole thing again and give our thoughts at some point on that.
Absolutely.
There has not been enough Y the Last Man content on this channel, Carson. We
we need more. I mean, more. We need like 16 read throughs at this point.
At this point, that's just going to get me a day off, and I'll take it.
You know what else is really important too? Because
man, my horse is sick. I can't show up, guys. I'm sorry about that.
His horse had the Y chromosome. What was that, Andy?
What's really important, where I have to do more things electronically and more things online, looking, searching, and hunting, is there are lots of channels out there that do lots of content on what's hot right now and top lists. Anything on a top list, I'm not buying. I'm either selling it or just making note of it. And JP Budget Collects does a review 6 months after those hot lists hit. And on his channel, 6 months later, he's reviewing where that book is sitting now. That's what I pay attention to 6 months later. I look for that curve when people stop paying attention to those books. I'm looking for books that people aren't talking about. And the way I do that is just watch what everybody's YouTube content. You know, there's a saying out there with people that work with data and spreadsheets and stuff like that, is sometimes not having any data is all the data you need. You know what I mean? Zero information sometimes tells you something incredibly important.
No, absolutely. And that's what was going to be one of my recommendations. At least like get yourself a little educated and just collect what you want to collect, basically. I'll shout out like 2 names I always shout out when it comes to these type of things. Spidey fan and a Poor Man's Comics. I could watch those guys haul videos all day. Those guys hunt down books they love, and they're not necessarily like, a lot of them are pretty valuable, but they're not necessarily the world's most valuable books, because they have particular, artists and collectors and cover artists they go after. And for me, at least, I like a lot of the same things. So when, say, like one of those 2 guys finds a book I didn't know about, it helps educate me on what I want to look for. Like I wouldn't mind finding more from artist Dave Stevens, and who finds a lot of that guy's stuff, a Poor Man's Comics. I'm like, I didn't even know that cover existed. Oh, cool. I can look for that in a dollar bin like he does. So it's just part of it's, educating yourself, but also you nailed it right on the head, Andy, when you said, don't look for the stuff that everybody else is looking for. You will never win in that situation. And especially if you're doing mainly online, like eBay shopping on it, you're just going to see the prices go up on it. But Drew, what does stealth buying mean to you? And I guess, what are some of your initial tips here?
Oh man, it means digging. It means not being afraid to dig. It means seeing a quarter bin and thinking to yourself, man, all those books are probably garbage, and going through every single one anyway. It's about spending the hours hunched over the long boxes. It's about the chiropractor bills from all the scoliosis that you're developing while you like, wow, let me lurch over these boxes here. Look, And honestly, it's about persistence, but it's also about kind of spreading out your hunts too. Like you don't want to keep going to the same place. You gotta find a loop. I got a loop, right? Where I got one place I'll go, and then I'll go hit the next place, and I'll hit the next place, and the next time around, I won't go to those places. I'll go somewhere else. Now I do have the advantage of having multiple comic shops within driving distance. I mean, a lot of people don't. A lot of flea markets on the East Coast, and a lot of people don't have that going on either. So, if you got to hit the online, you got to hit the websites, you got to hit those auctions. Make sure you know what you're looking for, and make sure you know where your limits are. I'll do this thing, and I kind of got some flack from it from some of the auction people, especially the YouTube auction people, where I'll throw a bid out, and then I'll bid a little bit, and then I'll stop. It's not because I don't think your book is worth $60. It's that I'm not willing to pay more than $20 for it. That it's not that I don't have $60. I'm just not spending it on that. And we could talk about regionality a little bit too, because I mean, Andy, I run across 9-8 candidates of that X-Men book all the time, and never more than $5. Never more than $5. I saw one at Baltimore Comic Con that was like $15, and I was like, fuck that. I've got so many copies of that book, I could not tell you. Newsstand or not, I'm not a newsstand collector. Talk to the other guy about that. But for my money, I don't know, man. The cost of the slab is like is something I don't hunt. So it might be worth it for you just for the cost of the slab. Man, $40 for that book, that kind of makes me go, whoa.
Well,
and that's a deal. So I'm whoa. I find it in a quarter bin, and it's probably like a 7.0. I'm buying it.
Well, if you look at it this way, Spawn number 9 was officially a 1 in 100. The newsstand was officially a 1 in 100. They don't have any numbers officially released for X-Men 4, and the print run was massive.
Yeah.
So what do you do when you hone in on a book that's got a first appearance of a great villain? It's a Jim Lee art, which is astounding, and it's a great title a lot of us grew up on.
Oh, I think that he's a big spec buy for X-Men universe, because everybody wants something different when the movies come to the Disney MCU. And Omega Red is one of those characters that is classic enough at this point, because he's a 90s first appearance, but is new enough to kind of give a different take on him. And you will have all the Russian influence that's happening with Black Widow and all of that. So there's a good way to origin movie him in there. And I think that it's a good investment, especially with the newsstand thing. I think that Omega Red's a good buy. I see that book all the time.
I honestly don't think it's a good investment. I think the only good investment, the only good play on that is the newsstand edition, because of the print run.
Yeah.
Chris Barrett's right. X-Men 4 is pretty overhyped.
I mean, Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 300. There's a bunch of those out there. There's a pretty big print run too. Who in the community who doesn't have a Spider-Man 300?
Yep. And the villain spec game was never really something great that held together for a very long time, until just recently with this whole Null event. And now Null is really building and gaining a lot of steam. But villain spec used to be very short-lived.
Hey, Carson, I hate to interrupt Andy, but Newbie Comics in the chat just says he thinks Mr. Sinister's the big play. Do you have any stealth buying stories about Mr. Sinister?
I don't even know how many copies of that I've obtained for $1 or less. I just got my 20-cent copy like a month ago, I think. But yeah, that's a book for whatever reason. I feel like we're going to talk about regionality for a second. I don't know if it's the Midwest specifically, because I do see it on other people's, like for instance, Silver Age Dave, Bub's Comics, those guys, they get a lot of good buys. But I feel like around here specifically, and where I live in Indiana, I don't know if there were just tons and tons of X-Men collectors in the 90s, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot now. I feel like X-Men for me has been one of the easiest books to collect for around that, like the start of the Jim Lee run all the way up until current. Like I feel, well, maybe not current, maybe like 2010. But I feel like there's just a ton of X-Men, like the first Omega Red. Like I've come across that book probably at least 3 or 4 times in a dollar. I've actually left it in dollar bins before because I just kept seeing it. I guess nowadays I kind of wish I would have just bought them all up, but whatever. I don't really resell too much.
You should just send a bunch of 20-cent copies of that book around to different people. You've been wooded.
I think I did. Like I think there was a box like Tacoma or somebody started where it was just like, it's in the, you can take whatever you want out of the box, just put stuff back in the box. I think I actually put a couple X-Men 4s in that box and sent it to somebody. I don't ever know where that thing went. But anyway, yeah, like
check
that,
eBay for all the rough copies of X-Men 4.
But yeah, the first Mr. Sinister is, for whatever reason, a book I just kept rolling into. And yeah, I'm like you, Barrett, and I still haven't found that ASM 300 either. That's a book that just, once you get that book, people just either hang on to it or they resell it for $300.
I sold mine. I sold mine pretty much a long time ago. I got nothing out of it.
Says, I never look for keys or spec books. I just go out looking for overlooked stories of the past 30 years. Recently bought a set of Grimjack, Kazar the Savage, and Starstruck. Good quarantine reading. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes, especially when you go digging, that's the best thing to get, is just those underappreciated reads. And just trying to do some run building for $1 or less. That is the absolute best strategy for that. But Drew, you were perfect in your strategy. You got to go digging, whether that's, a bookstore or your local shops, or just, a close by local shop that's within a 1 hour's drive. I mean, that's where you get the gold, basically, in my opinion. You're going once a week to these semi-successful spots you had. You just got to keep checking back at least like maybe once a month, if not once a week. And
yeah,
just keep hitting them up.
Best stealth buys I've had recently is I go to a shop on a fairly regular basis. I mean, he's my Wednesday guy for the most part. And if I go in on the day when he's checking in a collection, like he's just pulled all the wall books from a collection, and he hasn't gone through everything that, could be a $10 book, could be a $2 book, could be a $1 book. And I just start picking things off the counter. He'll give me a lot price on a bunch of them. And I'll end up, paying $5 a book for some books are $20 books. Some books are, dollar books, but I mean, some books are $20 books. So I think that's all being a consistent customer for people. And here's something that I'm going to tell everybody in the digital age, you guys and your eBays and your auctions and your PayPal accounts and your debit cards and all your fancy bullshit. Bring cash with you to the comic book shop. Bring cash with you to the convention, because cash is king still. And dude, I save so much money just by being a fountain of cash for my LCS. Right, I bring cash in. So what he might charge somebody $200 for, I might be able to get it for $1.15, so just because I have cash money in my pocket. That's the kind of discount that you can't pay for.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just establishing that rapport, that relationship. But at the same time, you got to be careful. You don't want to lowball these type of people either. You want to establish that relationship, and that's when you get that balance of like good deals and communication as well. And like if I'm going to, like, for instance, half price books, one of the strategies I use is, I don't know if I have a half price books. I milered those all up, so I don't. Sometimes you kind of notice their trend and how they'll print like a tiny date on each of the stickers they put on. So you kind of know, like, if you're flipping through like the first few boxes, if you don't see a current date, you kind of know you may as well just flip through faster than slower, because that means they probably haven't refilled in the last week or month, depending on the frequency you go there. So like when I go to the half price books around here, I know if I don't see like a current date, I know I just don't even need to waste too much further time here, and I'll just come back next time and see if they have stuff to, like, for instance, today's July 20th. If I don't see anything day within July, I'm not going to spend more than 5 minutes there. I'm just going to move on, basically.
Yeah, we also have a shop in the area. Anybody who's been to like East Coast cons probably knows Captain Chuck's. Their shops in Essex, Maryland, really great spot. and they've got really great curated back issues, right? And some of those are priced a little outdated, so you can sometimes get a deal, but you can also sometimes be overpaying, and you can always go. If I find something that I really like in their back issue bins, I then go and hit up their dollar books, because the same book might be sitting right in there. You never know, because they have convention stock, and now that they're not doing conventions, they put their convention stock out in the store as dollar books, and you know, it's a great setup because everything's organized, so you know, you can kind of look for what you're looking for.
Yeah,
really cool.
And pretty much, like, I think my biggest tip of the night, and this is where I'll start to show a few examples to kind of emphasize that tip. Don't sleep on your antique shops, your thrift stores, and all that stuff, because I mean, antique shops are where I get my greatest finds, in my opinion. So my first example I'm going to show are these two books, and I'm going to show them at the same time. I know it's not modern, I'm sorry, but hey, a good deal's a good deal.
That's modern enough.
Yeah, so I got these two books. It was my parents' antique shop, but they didn't even know these books were in their store. I was just kind of there milling around, and I'm like, oh, comics, you know how that goes. So, and actually, these aren't even all the books I found in the same day, but in the same booth, the same person, I found both of these. Like, I think it's been 2 years ago now, $3 a piece. So, and actually, yeah, this is, there's your newsstand right there, of course. Couple ticks on there, but not too bad. This wasn't even bagged and boarded. But for $3, you better believe I wasn't going to leave that late. And I believe Catrin Figures has almost the identical story. Her and Mark were in an antique shop, same state basically, and they got their copy for like $250, I think. So
this Hoosiers just giving shit away.
This book is still out there for cheap, guys. And then this was in the same booth in a different tote for $3, and it only has like, I think, I don't know where it's at this second. Oh, it's like right there. There's one minor tape pull, but for this being a 15 center, this is an absolutely beautiful copy. So $3 for this. I couldn't buy that. Actually, I think I bought like 3 trips worth in the same day, because I saw this so fast I had to run up to the counter and put my $3 down. And then I found more Silver Age Batman going through another one. So antique shops are a must. And like I said, thrift stores, and even like those other bookstores, like I mentioned half price books on my channel constantly, but don't sleep on like other ones. Like, there's still books of millions out there, and that's where I found this one. I think I also got this for $2 or $3. I know, Chris Barrett's in the chat. This is one of his coveted books right now. But Booster Gold #1 basically looks like it's never been read. Got it for $3. However, that being said, their deals at Books a Million, not the best. They try to price stuff like $4 or $5, so you got to be careful not to just start like loading up thinking you're getting a lot of stuff for $1, because they individually price each comic. For some reason, someone that day didn't like Booster Gold, so it went in for $3. So I was just like, yep, got that. And then half price books. I think there's like other bookstores out there like Second and Charles that have a lot of great deals out there. I've heard. I don't have one of those near me, but half price books, I pulled a few things out I got from there. I got this X-Men annual #14.
Hell yeah.
I got this one
signed.
I got this personally signed by Arthur Adams at C2E2 2019. Great Legend took the picture of it actually when I got that signed. But yeah, I found this for $1. That someone just donated all the X-Men annuals, and they put them all in there for $1 a piece. And this was definitely the highlight. But I got like 7. I think I got annuals 7 through 14 that same day, all for $1. So this was in that pile, of course. Cameo Gambit. I got this one for 20 cents. Shout out to Poor Man's Comics for kind of letting me know how much of a ghost this book is. So it says it's a historical engagement issue, which indicates it is a second printing, but it is also the newsstand version of it, which this kind of along with that first appearance of Tim Drake, which I'm still looking for that book, because that's also like an even bigger ghost where it says like first Robin issue on the top and it says newsstand at the bottom. This book is an absolute ghost that the only other person I've seen it was Poor Man's Comics, because he was just like, holy crap, someone else found that book. But this value is all over the place, and most of the time it's like high like 80s up until 3 figures ungraded. So and this one I don't do a lot of grading, but this is definitely one like it's on top of that's why it was out and about, because I keep wanting to get it graded. And in my opinion, maybe my greatest dollar find ever. And Andy, I know you'll appreciate this one because you've been reviewing this book. Sandman #1, $1.
Wow.
I don't think I can. This is a book I just never thought I'd own, and I've had really good luck the last few years hunting down these like Sandman, like the first run of Sandman. Like before I even bought this one, I think I got issues 2 through 8 off eBay for like $2 a piece, which is like cool. First death, I'll take that all day. And then like 2 months later, I don't know if that just gave me like good vibes or something. I ended up finding this for $1 at that half price books I go to like every week. So couldn't believe. I thought it was like a multiple printing that just looked cool, so I bought it. Like I was like, I don't think they have too many multiple printings that have the original cover, and I don't think there is one besides like the Vertigo Essentials or whatever. But it says it like real big on the top or bottom. But yeah, I think this was maybe my finest dollar pickup, just because those Vertigo titles you don't really see ever or that often in dollar bins period from that era. So I don't know what they were thinking that day, because I feel like sometimes I'll take a book like that and now go in their like coveted glass case up front. So I don't know. It's just like it's not being priced by comic collectors all the time, I guess, is the main point of going to these types of bookstores and antique shops and stuff. So sometimes it's just like average Joe earning minimum wage, just pricing with a price gun. They're just looking at, that book looks kind of cool, $1. Oh, this book sucks, $1. Oh, this book's tore up, $1. Sandman #1, $1. So they just throw everything in the same pile if they don't know. Like, it's not like they have some of them could probably get on eBay. I've seen them do it before as well, so they can kind of see what they have. But sometimes they're in a hurry. They're just trying to get product out on the shelf for everybody to shop. So yeah, absolutely. And then antique stores once again. Don't sleep on your antique shops. You're on the interstate driving somewhere. You see a big antique, barn or whatever. Give it a stop. You never know what you're going to find, or you could just find some other fun old stuff like those old like Burger King glasses, or like the old superhero stuff, or like the crystal cut Batman and Robin Taco Bell glasses, or wherever they were.
Those are so great.
They are. So yeah, you never know what you're going to find. So it's always worth stopping at like a peddler mall or something like that. So any final notes on stealth buying, guys?
You hit it right on the head with the antique shops. That's usually my go-to place, because everything else gets picked over so hard. The antique shops usually try to use eBay to price their stuff, but it doesn't work out for them a lot of times, especially on stuff that doesn't sell often. So they end up just going with what their gut feeling is, and that usually leads to really good deals.
Well, because how many Amazing Spider-Man #1s are there at this point, right? How many Booster Gold #1s are there? 3 at this point. 3, so maybe they just looked it up, and the first thing that came up was $3. So there you go. Did the picture match? I don't know. Was I paying attention? I work in an antique mall.
Yeah, there's one lady, because sometimes there's one I go to where it's a glass case and you got to call the older lady up front. And I think I picked one out that was like $30 once. I think it was like the first appearance of Jason Todd I got up there. It was like $30 or $35, which I thought was a solid deal for that book. I wouldn't call it a stealth buy, obviously, but she's just like, I never thought I'd see the day where people are paying $30, $35 for these things. I'm like, yeah, me either, man. It's a good deal though. Trust me. So it's just like, some people like that are just pricing the books, and that's when you get the cheap stuff.
Yeah, it feels good. There's this guy at the flea market where I go to right around the corner from my house, and he sells a lot of action figures, comics, vinyl, but mostly he sells used video games. The problem with this guy is he knows exactly what he's got. The thing that's also great about this guy is like there's loyalty there. So if I go in, like if I'm looking for a Super Nintendo game, I'm not going anywhere else looking for it. I'm going to go right there, and or I'll call him up and be like, hey, do you have this? And when I'm there, I'll look through his records. I'll look through his comics, see if there's any cool Razor Ramon action figures hanging on the wall in the single service baggies where they used to be loose and now they're packaged up because dude's on top of his shit. So, you can always find something. I would say that the best way to do that is to cultivate relationships with these shop owners, with these merchants inside of these antique malls. Just because I got a guy who will call me when he gets new stuff, that's invaluable. to be one of the first people to go through a collection. That's great, because he's going to get what he wants to get out of it too. But like, if he's selling something cheaper than it's worth, I want to be the first person that gets a crack at picking it out,
or at least obtain that email. Like, I emailed one of the guys I go to at his antique booth, and if some reason at the time, which they're all beautiful books, I'm just like, hey, I've been noticed you got a lot of nice quality like Phantom Strangers and 70s DC horror. I will buy that stuff if you have it stocked in your booth. And sure enough, the next time I went, I ended up with like a stack this big of like $3 to $5 early Bronze Age DC horror books. Some of the nicest Bernie Wrightson art you could find, and he just loaded it up, $35. So yeah, definitely. Like I say, if you can make the contact the way you want, go ahead and just make the contact. See what happens. Worst case scenario, they end up with $100 pretty looking book. You're like, oh, that's cool. He threw that in there for me, but I can't afford it, so I'm going to move on. All right. So before we kind of do our makeshift poll, Drew, what are we reading next week?
Next week, we'll be reading Super Sons of Tomorrow. It is a 5-part game-changing crossover event between Superman, Super Sons, and the Teen Titans. We're talking Rebirth era. This is Superman 37, followed by Super Sons 11, Teen Titans 15, Superman 38, and Super Sons number 12. There is a threat to the future. That threat is Jonathan Kent, and the only man who believes that he can stop it is the Batman of the future, one Tim Drake. How does it go down? Read it. Talk with us about it next week. I'm excited for these guys to get a chance to read one of my favorite crossovers from DC. And I'm excited about it for everybody, not just me seeing your reactions, guys, but I'm genuinely excited that you get to experience such a wonderful thing.
Nice. So
my wild card pool is a charity for all of you.
So we're going to be reading that week 42. And of course, week 45, we still have planned the Infinity Gauntlet special for week 45. So cannot wait for that. So if you guys are big fans of George Perez, Jim Starlin, you're going to be in for a treat on August 17th. But we got a little bit of business we got to figure out, guys, because we had some Wilder cards that we don't quite want to talk about yet. It's going to happen next week. Now it's been rescheduled for an even bigger event. We'll talk about later down the line once we have concrete details. But guys, we got to figure out week 43 here. So I got a fresh poll with 5 options that haven't been filled in yet. So Andy, Drew, you guys got any ideas on what we should read next?
I feel like I want to say Chew, but it's not going to win.
Yeah, we'll keep adding Chew on there. So I'm going to put Chew by John Layman.
Yeah, next week you can also read Chew number 1, which is the new Chew spinoff.
That's right.
Yeah.
How about Transmetropolitan?
Oh, okay. That could be an interesting conversation. Warren Ellis has been a naughty boy. We could add some conversation about that.
Oh, wait, I must have missed something then.
How about Zdarsky's Daredevil?
Yes, please. Thank you. Great pick.
We never did get a chance to read that, did we?
We did not.
That finished second.
Read Born Again
multiple times.
Yeah, Zdarsky's Daredevil is probably one of the most slept on ongoing series right now. It's just fantastic.
All right.
How many spots we got left?
Two more spots. 2 more spots. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and put on there. I can't remember if I added this to a poll or not. Actually, I'm going to add that. I'm not going to add that. I'm going to put on Gotham Central, Volume 1, from Ed Brubaker and Greg Rucka. So I'm going to go ahead and add Gotham Central.
How about that 90s X-Men run, the first 6 issues?
Okay. That sounds like a plan to me.
It seems to be talked about in the community. Why not read that?
So X-Men. What was that first story arc called?
I don't know. Just put 91.
Oh, X-Men 91. Okay. By Claremont and Lee.
It was called Magneto is back again as a bad guy.
All right. So I got
a hard time finding that.
Transmetropolitan, Daredevil, Gotham Central, X-Men 91. I am posting that right now for you guys to vote on for week 43. So yeah, that's an interesting poll now, because I've been kind of saying for a while, I've kind of wanted to read some early 90s stuff just to see what we think of it. Basically, I've always kind of thought about like trying to force us to read Wildcats or Gen 13. I think X-Men.
Oh, wild! You know what? We should do one of those. We'll do a theme poll.
Yeah, we'll do
with all 90s image team books.
Absolutely. So yeah, we'll do a funny 90s, early 90s theme poll for week 44.
Yeah.
Kind of get ready for week 45 for a good read. We probably won't throw Youngblood on there, but we'll at least have
Yeah, let's put Youngblood on there. Why not? It won't win.
We'll see how much the people hate us. Like if you hate us, vote for Youngblood Volume 1.
We'll put Gen 13 on the poll, and then we'll just get to put Youngblood on there so Youngblood can watch from the sidelines while we talk about Fairchild's booze.
Or we'll probably put Spawn number 1 on there. Or
God, that's the worst.
And then it'll probably win by a landslide. So
we'll see what terrible happens.
So the poll's up. Definitely check it out on the community tab. Andy, where can people find you?
Hey, you guys can find me here every Monday night with Modern Men. You guys can find me on the Wednesday show, laughing my tail off. And Andy Given Thursdays here only on the Comic Core, 10 p.m. Stay tuned. That's coming up. And you guys can check out my channel where I do a little bit of an experimenting with edited videos and some hauls and some mail calls and some new comic book day stuff. You guys can find me on the Pinkies Out podcast and all your favorite podcasting applications. We're getting ready to finally get back to it. We've got the camping spot reserved. We've got the big old camper set up, and we're going to be crashing next weekend for an epic 3-hour long recording of a giant vertical of 20% beers, a 6-year vertical.
Wow.
That's going to be a good time.
Damn.
All right, Drew, where can people find you?
You guys can find me right here on the Comic Core. There will be some videos this week. I'm going to make some, and you're going to get to watch them. Before you get to that point, you can watch my video from last week, so you can find out what's coming out on Wednesday. Good day to watch that tomorrow on Tuesday, so you know what's coming out on Wednesday. Also, if you enjoy my take on comic books, I reviewed this past week Dark Knight's Death Metal issue number 2. So you can watch that video right here on the Comic Core. Man, look at all this synergy. Here we are on the Comic Core making videos for the Comic Core. It's great, guys. I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Awesome. And you can find me if you search Seawoodard19 on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. I'm available on all those platforms, as well as here on the Comic Core. We'll probably be back with you, Drew and I, at least this Friday on Comic Core Roundtable, 10 p.m. Eastern. And definitely don't forget to check out mainframecomiccon.com. That is coming up sooner than later. Is an amazing guest list. That's August 15th through the 16th. You can tell by the wonderful guest list so far. It is filled with tons of comic creators. So if you guys like the comic side of a con and the interviews and panels and all that stuff, you guys are going to be in for one heck of a ride on August 15th and 16th. That's mainframecomiccon.com. And, of course, don't forget to check out heroinitiative.org. And, yes, go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that if you guys were fans of the first Mainframe Comic Con and all the great guests we had there, but you were looking for something more that you were missing from the con experience, we will have retailers at Mainframe Comic Con Part 3. I guess we're not calling it Part 3. It's the reboot, Mainframe reboot. There will be vendors, so you're going to be able to buy comic books and original art and all kinds of cool stuff, and attend all kinds of cool panels and see all kinds of cool interviews and interactive exhibits. There's going to be all kinds of cool stuff. Can't wait.
Awesome. Well, until next time, guys, we'll see you next week for Super Sons of Tomorrow. Later, guys.